The rain had been falling steadily all morning when Margaret noticed the old man slip through the diner's front door. She was wiping down the counter, her practiced hands moving in slow, circular motions she'd perfected over 23 years of working at Rosie's Diner. The man looked to be in his 70s, maybe older. His gray hair was slightly disheveled, and he wore a worn brown jacket that had seen better days. There was something gentle in his face, something that reminded Margaret of her own father. He chose a booth by the window and sat down carefully, as if his bones were weary from carrying too many years. Margaret grabbed a menu and walked over, her red skirt swishing softly with each step. The blue blouse she wore was crisp and clean. She always took pride in her appearance, even after all these years. "Good morning," she said warmly, placing the menu in front of him. "Wet day out there, isn't it?" The old man looked up and smiled. It was a kind smile, the sort that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "That it is," he replied quietly. "Just a coffee, please, black." Margaret nodded and returned moments later with a steaming cup. She noticed his hands trembled slightly as he wrapped them around the mug, seeking its warmth. Over the next hour, she refilled his cup twice, watching him gaze out at the rain-soaked street with a faraway look in his eyes. When he finally asked for the check, Margaret brought it over. The old man patted his pockets, then patted them again. His expression shifted from calm to worried, then to something that looked like quiet embarrassment. I seem to have forgotten my wallet," he said softly, not meeting her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I live just a few blocks away. I could come back." Margaret didn't hesitate. "Don't you worry about it," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's just coffee. You stay as long as you'd like." The old man looked up at her then, and she saw something in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or gratitude, or maybe both. "That's very kind of you, miss." "Margaret," she said with a smile. "And it's no trouble at all. We all forget things sometimes." He introduced himself as Harold, and they talked for a few minutes. He told her about his late wife, Eleanor, who had passed 2 years ago. How the house felt too big and too quiet now. How some days he just needed to be around people, even strangers in a diner. Margaret listened the way she always did, with her full attention, nodding at the right moments, offering a kind word here and there. When Harold finally left, Margaret paid for his coffee out of her own tips. It was only $3.50, but she didn't think twice about it. That's just what you did for people. 3 weeks passed. Margaret had nearly forgotten about the encounter when a well-dressed young woman walked into the diner one Tuesday afternoon. She carried a briefcase and asked to speak with Margaret privately. "My name is Jennifer Collins," she said. "I'm an attorney representing Harold Whitmore." Does that name sound familiar? Margaret thought for a moment. "Harold, the older gentleman? Is he all right?" "He's fine," Jennifer assured her. "But he asked me to deliver something to you." She placed an envelope on the table. "Mr. Whitmore is actually Harold Whitmore, of Whitmore Industries. I don't know if that means anything to you." Margaret shook her head slowly. The name did sound vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. Jennifer continued, "He's one of the wealthiest men in the state, worth billions. He told me about what you did for him, paying for his coffee. He said it was the first time in 2 years that someone treated him like a regular person, not like a checkbook or an opportunity." Margaret felt her cheeks warm. "It was just coffee," she said quietly. "To you, maybe. To him, it was something more." Jennifer pushed the envelope closer. "He wanted you to have this." Inside was a check. Margaret had to count the zeros twice. $50,000. Her hands began to shake. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "It's too much." "He anticipated you might say that," Jennifer replied with a knowing smile. "He told me to tell you this. Eleanor always said that the measure of a person isn't in what they have, but in what they give when they have nothing to gain. He said you reminded him of her. He said you reminded him that there's still genuine kindness in the world." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She thought about her own struggles, the mortgage payment that was always tight, her daughter's college loans, the car that needed repairs she kept putting off. $50,000 would change everything. But more than that, she thought about Harold sitting in that booth, alone and forgotten, holding a coffee cup with trembling hands. She hadn't helped him expecting anything in return. She'd helped him because it was the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves kindness. Because that's what her own mother had taught her. and what she'd tried to teach her children. "He doesn't come to the diner anymore?" Margaret asked. "He does, actually," Jennifer said. "Every Tuesday and Thursday morning. He just wanted to remain anonymous until now. He values his friendship with you. He says you're one of the few people who talks to him about real things, about life and loss and the small moments that matter." Margaret wiped her eyes and smiled. "Tell him the coffee's still on me," she said. "And tell him I'll see him Thursday. We can talk about his Eleanor, and I'll tell him about my late husband, Tom." Jennifer stood to leave, then paused. "He also wanted me to tell you something else. He said that in all his years of business, making deals worth millions, building an empire, none of it felt as valuable as sitting in that booth on a rainy morning, being treated with simple human kindness by a waitress in a red skirt, who saw him as just Harold." After Jennifer left, Margaret sat alone in an empty booth, holding the check in her hands. She thought about all the times she'd wondered if kindness mattered anymore, if small gestures made any difference in a world that often felt hard and cold. She thought about every cup of coffee she'd poured, every customer she'd smiled at, every moment she'd chosen to be patient when it would have been easier to be indifferent. Sometimes we never know the impact of our kindness. Sometimes a simple gesture costing no more than $3.50 can remind someone that they matter, that they're seen, that in a world obsessed with transactions and wealth and status, there are still people who give freely, expecting nothing in return. Margaret went back to work, her heart full. And when Thursday came, she greeted Harold with her warmest smile, poured him his black coffee, and sat down across from him during her break. Two people who'd known loss, who understood that the most valuable things in life can't be bought, just given, one small kindness at a time.